My mom took out a $300,000 loan to buy my sister an apartment as a gift. Now, years later, she's moving into my house, expecting me to pay for everything. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. I still remember the day I found out about the apartment. It wasn't from my mom or my sister, but from a mutual friend who casually mentioned how generous my mother was for helping Lena get a place in Dallas. I thought she meant maybe a down payment or a few thousand toward rent, but when I asked Mom about it, her tone was breezy, like she'd just picked up groceries. "Oh, that," she said. "Yes, I wanted your sister to feel secure. I took out a loan. It's only $300,000. Only $300,000. At the time, I was scraping together every dollar to close on a tiny 2-bedroom in Austin. I'd been eating canned soup for dinner, trying to keep my credit score high enough for the mortgage. Mom knew that. She even told me I should wait until you're more stable. Meanwhile, she was signing bank papers to buy Lena an entire apartment as a surprise. I remember sitting there in stunned silence, my phone pressed to my ear, listening to her explain how it was an investment in Lena's future. Lena, who had changed jobs 5 times in 2 years. Lena, who still called Mom whenever her car insurance was due. When I asked why she didn't at least tell me, Mom sighed like I was being dramatic. "Camille, don't be jealous. You have your independence. Lena just needs more help right now." That line, "you have your independence," burned into me. It was supposed to be a compliment, but it sounded like punishment. Independence meant I didn't need love or fairness or even basic honesty. Independence meant I got to be the responsible one while everyone else got rescued. For months, I tried to ignore it. I went to family dinners, brought wine, smiled at Lena's stories about her place, pretending it didn't sting every time she referred to it as her apartment. Mom beamed at her like a proud investor. I stayed quiet, telling myself it wasn't worth the fight. But sometimes, late at night in my half-furnished home, I'd replay the conversation in my head. Mom taking out a $300,000 loan she couldn't afford. The way she said it so casually, like generosity excused deception. The way she made me feel like the bad guy for even asking why. I told myself I was overreacting, that keeping the peace was better than stirring the pot. But deep down, I knew something had cracked. It wasn't just about money. It was about the kind of love that keeps score. And in our family, I was always the one paying the balance. When Mom called me one Sunday morning, her voice trembled in that careful way she used when she wanted something. She said she was a little tight after retiring early. I didn't ask for details at first. I already knew what that meant. Eventually, she admitted the apartment she bought for Lena was a little upside down. The loan payments, taxes, and repairs were stacking up. I could hear papers shuffling on her end, like she was looking for proof to justify it. "Your sister's been struggling, you know," she added quickly, as if I'd accuse her of favoritism. "She can't afford to help with the payments right now." When I called Lena to ask, she sighed dramatically and said, "Cam, I'm barely scraping by. Mom just needs a break. You have a good job. You could help her for a while." That "for a while" clung to me. It always did. A week later, Mom came by with grocery bags full of excuses. She teared up over coffee, saying she was afraid she might lose everything. It wasn't about the apartment anymore. It was about her survival. I watched her twist the story until it felt cruel not to help. Against my better judgment, I agreed to cover her utilities, just until things settle. Every month, another small favor turned into a bill. I paid her phone, her electricity, her prescriptions. She called it helping out family. I called it keeping her afloat. The guilt sat on my chest like a weight I'd learned to live with. Then one afternoon, while helping her sort some mail, I noticed a letter from a real estate agency addressed to her old home. The one she'd sworn she couldn't sell yet. When I asked, she said it was just an inquiry. Her tone was too casual, her eyes too calm. I didn't press, but something didn't sit right. A few months later, she mentioned in passing that she'd finally sold the place. No details, no figures. Just a shrug. I asked what she planned to do with the money, and she laughed lightly. Oh, there wasn't much left after fees. She changed the subject before I could ask more. That night, I sat in my kitchen staring at my own bills, realizing I'd taken on her expenses without question. I'd convinced myself it was temporary, but nothing about my mother ever stayed temporary. She knew exactly which strings to pull, and I was still tangled in every one of them. It wasn't the money that bothered me most. It was the quiet certainty that she was hiding something again. Somewhere, beneath all the tears and thank yous, she was still playing a game I didn't understand. And like always, I was paying for it. Mom called late one evening, her voice shaky but deliberate. She said her new neighborhood wasn't safe anymore. The landlord was a creep, the neighbors were loud, and she couldn't sleep at night. Before I could respond, she added softly, "I just need a place for a few months, Cam. Just until I find something stable." I stared at the phone, already knowing what my answer would be. I told myself it was temporary, that helping her settle for a while wouldn't hurt. But when she showed up 3 days later, her car was packed to the brim. 10 boxes, 2 suitcases, and her old terrier barking like it owned the place. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "You have no idea how much this means to me." Within hours, my house didn't feel like mine. She moved her things into the guest room, then the hallway, then the living room corner where she set up a stack of porcelain figurines I'd never seen before. She replaced my kitchen towels with hers because mine were too dull. She opened windows I liked shut, closed doors I preferred open, and rearranged my spice rack as if it were an act of mercy. It started small, little comments about my modern furniture, my cooking, even how I folded laundry. "You work too much," she'd say while fluffing my couch pillows. "If you learn to relax a little, you might actually enjoy your home." Every word felt like a gentle scolding disguised as advice. A week passed, then 2. She hadn't mentioned moving out again. Instead, she settled into routines, making coffee before I woke, leaving her shoes by the door, using my streaming accounts like they were hers. When I tried to bring up her timeline, she smiled and said, "You worry too much, honey. I'll be out of your hair before you know it." But late one night, as I walked past her room, I heard her voice through the half-closed door. She was on the phone, whispering to Lena. "I'll just stay here till Cam figures out how to take care of me properly," she said, her tone smug, almost amused. The words stopped me cold. I stood there, gripping my mug, feeling the quiet snap of something deep inside me. It wasn't just the invasion of space. It was the entitlement, the way she spoke about my home as if it were hers by right. I didn't confront her. I just turned and went back to my room, the walls suddenly feeling too thin. She'd come under the pretense of safety, but what she really wanted was control. And as I lay awake that night, listening to her dog's nails click against my hardwood floor, I realized she had no intention of ever leaving. It started with a stack of mail I wasn't supposed to see. Mom had left it on the kitchen counter, mixed in with coupons and grocery ads. Most of it looked harmless until I noticed the same lender's name appearing again and again. I opened one envelope, then another. Every letter was a refinance notice. Dates stretched back years. My stomach turned as I pieced it together. She hadn't just taken one loan for Lena's apartment. She'd refinanced her house over and over to bail her out. Credit cards, car payments, the apartment. It was all tangled together. The numbers didn't even look real. By the last refinance, she'd squeezed out every cent of equity she had. When she came home, I was sitting at the table with the papers spread out like evidence. She froze in the doorway, eyes narrowing before she even asked what I was doing. "What is this?" I demanded. "You told me you were fine. You told me you sold the house because you were downsizing. You didn't mention you were drowning in debt because of Lena." She exhaled slowly, then smiled, a cold, practiced smile. "Camille, you always overreact. I did what any mother would do. Your sister needed help. Help. You've destroyed your finances for her. And you lied to me." Her tone sharpened. "You're just jealous. Lena's had it harder than you, and you know it. I can't believe you'd make this about money." The word jealous hit like a slap. That was her weapon, turning outrage into guilt. I pushed the papers toward her. "This isn't about money. It's about trust. You lied again, and now you expect me to clean it up." Her voice rose. "I'm your mother. You don't talk to me that way." We went in circles, accusations, tears, silence, then more shouting. By the time she stormed off to her room, my hands were shaking. Minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was Lena. "What did you say to Mom?" she snapped. "She's crying. You've been disrespectful lately. She gave you everything, Camille. Everything." I laughed bitterly. "Everything? You mean she gave you everything?" Lena's voice went icy. "You've always been ungrateful. Maybe that's why she doesn't tell you things." When the call ended, I sat on the floor, surrounded by the proof of everything I'd always suspected but never wanted to admit. Every dollar, every favor, every sacrifice had been for Lena. I realized then it wasn't a phase or a misunderstanding. It was a pattern. Love in our family came with debt attached. And no matter how hard I worked to stand on my own, Mom would always find a way to make me pay for it. I noticed the first charge while checking my account on a quiet Saturday morning. $243 at a luxury boutique. I thought it was fraud until I saw the next one. $180 at a salon. Then another. By the time I added them up, the total was over $1,200. The statement said the card had been used for groceries. My groceries never came with spa packages. When Mom came downstairs, humming like she hadn't just stolen from me, I asked her straight out, "Did you use my card?" She blinked, unbothered. "Just for a few things we needed around the house. You told me to grab groceries, remember?" I pulled up the transactions on my phone and held it out. "This is not groceries, Mom. These are designer clothes and hair treatments." Her expression didn't change. "Camille, you make good money. It's the least you can do for your mother." Something in me snapped. "The least I can do? You've been living here for months, rent-free. I pay for your food, your prescriptions, your bills, and now my credit card too." Her tone turned icy. "You don't talk to me like that. After everything I've done for you." I walked to the counter, grabbed the card she'd been using, and cut it cleanly in half. The sound made her flinch. "This stops now," I said quietly. Her eyes filled instantly with tears, the practiced kind. "If this is how you see me, maybe I should just move out. Maybe you'd rather never see me again." It was the same line she used whenever she wanted control, threatened to disappear, make me beg her to stay. But this time I didn't. I stood there, my chest tight, my voice shaking just enough to betray me. Maybe that's for the best. She stared at me like she didn't recognize who I was. Then she turned, slammed her bedroom door, and locked it. The sound echoed through the house. For the next few days, the silence was thick and deliberate. No breakfast smells, no television hum, just the faint clatter of her dog's nails in the hallway. I caught glimpses of her moving from room to room, ignoring me completely. At night, I'd hear her on the phone in hushed tones, probably telling Lena how ungrateful I'd become. I lay awake listening, knowing this wasn't a fight we could patch up. For the first time, the guilt didn't win. The exhaustion did. I wasn't angry anymore, just drained. I'd finally stopped pretending that doing the least I could do would ever be enough for her. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was at work. A man's voice, polite but firm, asking for Ms. Camille Hart regarding an overdue balance. I almost hung up, assuming it was spam, until he read off the last 4 digits of my social security number. My stomach dropped. He said it was about a car loan, missed payments, late fees, a balance of nearly $19,000. I told him there had to be a mistake. I hadn't bought a car in years. He read the cosigner name, Lena Hart. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My mouth went dry, and the room seemed to tilt. I asked when the loan was opened. 2 years ago, he said. 2 years. Right around the time Mom was supposedly helping Lena with her credit problems. When I got home, I went straight to Mom's room. She was sitting on the bed, flipping through a magazine like nothing was wrong. I held up my phone. "Did you use my social security number?" She froze just for a second, then sighed. "Camille, calm down. It was for Lena's car. She needed a co-signer, and you weren't using your credit for anything important." I stared at her, waiting for her to realize what she'd just said. "You stole my information, Mom. You ruined my credit." She waved her hand dismissively. "It's not ruined. It's just a few late payments. Lena was supposed to take care of it. Don't be so dramatic." I felt something sharp twist inside me. "You didn't even ask me. You forged my name." Her voice rose. "I did it for family. You should be thanking me for helping your sister stay on her feet." That was it, the last piece snapping into place. Every lie, every favor, every manipulation. She never saw it as wrong, just necessary. I left the room shaking and called Lena. She answered cheerfully at first, then went quiet when I mentioned the car loan. "You knew?" I asked. She hesitated. "Mom said you were okay with it. She said you offered." I laughed, one of those hollow, tired laughs that sound like breaking glass. "You both lied to me." "Cam, don't make this a big deal," she said softly. "It's already almost paid off." "It's fraud," I snapped. "You used my name, my credit, my trust. And you both think I'll just shrug it off?" Her silence said everything. By the time I hung up, my hands were shaking too hard to hold the phone. I sat on the couch, staring at nothing, realizing there was nothing left to salvage. I wasn't their safety net. I was their solution, their scapegoat, their silent donor. I picked up my laptop and searched for an attorney. Not out of revenge, out of self-preservation. Whatever bond we had already been broken. I was just finally putting it in writing. I filed the eviction paperwork on a rainy Thursday morning, the kind of day that already felt heavy before it began. The clerk stamped the documents without looking up, and the sound made my chest tighten. I didn't want to be that person, the daughter kicking her mother out, but there was no other way left. When Mom got the notice, she didn't yell. She went quiet, too quiet. Then came the performance. She called the neighbors, crying so loudly I could hear her through the window. My own daughter, she wailed, throwing me out on the street like I'm a stranger. By that evening, 2 of her church friends had left voicemails telling me to rethink what family means. It didn't stop there. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me on social media. You'll regret this when she's gone. Another relative wrote, she did everything for you, Camille. Have some compassion. Mom had always known how to weaponize pity. She played fragile when it suited her, saintly when it didn't. Inside the house, she acted wounded and noble. She cooked dinner for herself, humming as if she were the victim of some great injustice. When we passed in the hallway, she'd sigh dramatically. I never thought you'd be capable of this, she whispered once, not even looking at me. The silence between us grew colder every day. I stopped answering calls, stopped explaining myself. It didn't matter what I said. People only heard her version. I tried to remind myself why I was doing this, but guilt has a way of whispering in your ear late at night. What if I really was heartless? What if I was becoming the kind of person she always accused me of being? Then I'd remember all the times she'd chosen Lena over me. The birthday she skipped because Lena needed her. The Christmas she spent in Dallas while I sat alone. The loans, the lies, the endless rescues that left me holding the bill. Those memories hardened something in me, turned pity into clarity. I started to think less about justice and more about protection. The next time she tried to use my name, my credit, my guilt, I wanted her to find a wall she couldn't climb. So while she was busy collecting sympathy, I started collecting documents. Bank statements, texts, copies of everything she'd signed under my name. No more shouting. No more pleading. Just quiet preparation. By the time the eviction hearing date came through, I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm, numb maybe, but steady. She could cry to the whole world if she wanted. For once, I was done defending myself. Let them call me cold. They didn't know what it took to finally stop being her daughter and start being free. The attorney's office was small, quiet, and smelled faintly of paper and coffee. I laid out every document in neat stacks, bank statements, loan letters, screenshots of charges, even the signed forms with my forged signature. The lawyer glanced through them, nodding slowly. You've got enough here to file a fraud report, he said. We can also request a civil separation of liability. It'll protect you from any future damage tied to their accounts. It sounded sterile, procedural, but to me it was oxygen. For the first time in years, I was doing something that couldn't be undone with tears or guilt. We filed the claim under my name alone. No confrontation, no warning call, no last chance. I wanted distance, not revenge, or at least that's what I told myself then. Once the paperwork was in motion, I started tracing the threads that connected Mom and Lena's finances. It didn't take much digging to find what they'd both overlooked. Lena was renting out one of the rooms in her gift apartment for cash, and not a cent of it had been declared. I remembered the smug way she'd talked about making smart money moves. It took less than 15 minutes online to report it anonymously. No lies, no embellishment, just the truth delivered quietly. After that, I stopped checking in. I didn't need updates. I deleted their numbers and turned my focus back to my own accounts. The lawyer handled the calls, the forms, the filings. It was clinical, detached, almost surgical, the kind of justice that didn't need to announce itself. Weeks passed before I heard anything. Then a letter arrived confirming my financial disassociation from both of them. Any debts tied to my social security number were officially transferred. It was like a cord had finally been cut. Around the same time, I noticed subtle shifts. Mom stopped posting online about her wonderful new chapter. Lena's messages disappeared from group chats. A mutual acquaintance mentioned that the IRS had contacted Lena for an audit. Another said Mom's accounts were temporarily frozen pending investigation. I didn't celebrate. I didn't even smile. I just closed my laptop and let the quiet settle. They would never know what I'd done. They'd blame each other, twist the story into something dramatic, but it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't playing defense. I'd taken the board away entirely. The power shift wasn't loud or satisfying. It was quiet, steady, like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. For once, there were no tears, no apologies, no guilt clawing at the edges of my peace. Everything that had been taken from me, my credit, my trust, my sense of control, was finally mine again. And I didn't need either of them to understand what that felt like. It took months for everything to unravel, but when it did, it happened fast. One morning, Mom's voice carried down the hall, panicked and sharp. She was on the phone with her bank, demanding answers. I didn't need to ask what was wrong. I already knew. By the end of the week, her accounts were frozen pending review. She stormed around the house, muttering about bureaucratic nonsense and unfair treatment. But the fear in her eyes said everything. Then came the news about Lena. The IRS had moved in on the apartment, back taxes and penalties swallowing everything she thought she owned. She posted cryptic messages online about betrayal and family turning against you. But I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The world was finally catching up to the truth I'd lived with for years. When Mom finally packed her things, she didn't say goodbye. She moved in silence, box after box, her face drawn tight with humiliation. The same woman who'd paraded her sacrifices in front of everyone now couldn't look me in the eye. She left behind a mug, a few towels, and a half-empty bottle of perfume. The dog barked once from the car, then they were gone. Within days, the calls started. Cousins, old friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Each one ready to tell me how cruel I'd been. "She's your mother," one cousin scolded. "No one deserves to be treated that way." Another texted, "You'll regret this someday." I didn't answer any of them. Explaining myself had become another kind of prison, and I wasn't stepping back inside. Then Lena called. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity won. Her voice came through loud and furious, spitting blame. "You did this. You ruined us," she screamed. I listened just long enough to confirm what I already knew. She still believed everything that went wrong in her life was someone else's fault. Halfway through her rant, I hung up. The click of the phone ending the call was soft, final, almost beautiful. The silence that followed filled the house, steady and full of air for the first time in years. A few weeks later, I sold the house. I didn't need the space anymore. It was too full of memories that didn't belong to me. I found a small cottage near the coast, a quiet town where no one knew my name, where the ocean muffled everything that used to keep me awake. There were no goodbyes, no explanations, no guilt this time. Just the sound of waves outside my window and the feeling of a weight finally lifting. For the first time, peace didn't feel like absence. It felt like ownership of my life, my silence, and myself. The house near the water was small, simple, and quiet in a way I hadn't known I needed. Most mornings, I sat by the window with coffee, listening to waves roll in against the shore. There were no calls, no sudden knocks, no voices demanding explanations. Just the rhythm of the tide and the hum of my own breathing. I'd stopped trying to make sense of everything months ago. The anger had burned itself out, leaving only understanding, cold, clean, final. I hadn't destroyed my family. They had done that themselves, one favor, one lie, one guilt trip at a time. What passed for love between us had always been a kind of currency, traded and owed until there was nothing left to give. Sometimes, when the sun fell low and the light hit just right, I'd find myself opening the drawer by the bed. Inside was a single photograph, me and Mom, years ago, standing in front of a Christmas tree. We looked happy, or at least like people pretending well. I never framed it. I just kept it there untouched, as proof that once, before all the manipulation and debt and disappointment, there might have been something real. I didn't hate her. Not anymore. Hate still tied me to her, and I'd cut every thread I could. What I felt now was distance, a kind of calm acceptance that some relationships aren't meant to be fixed, just released. Some evenings I'd drive along the coast road, windows down, air salt heavy and cool. The world felt wide again. For years, every decision I made had been tangled in their needs, their messes, their versions of what family was supposed to mean. Now, for the first time, I was the only one steering. I still don't know what family is supposed to feel like. Maybe I never will. But I've learned what it's not. It's not a balance sheet, not a chain of favors mistaken for love. It's not a test I have to keep failing to prove I care. When I think of them now, it's like remembering a story I once knew by heart, but no longer believe in. I hope they find whatever peace they were chasing, even if it comes without me. As the road bends toward the horizon, the sea flashes silver in the rearview mirror. I don't look back for long. The past is still there, somewhere behind me, but it doesn't own me anymore. For the first time in my life, every mile forward belongs entirely to me. Do you think Camille was right to finally cut them off? Or should family loyalty matter no matter the cost? Tell me what you'd have done. And if her story hit home, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories like this one.